Okay, this is a nice little glossary of terms that we use in climate friendly farming methods. We also call it smart agriculture, climate resilient agriculture, and sustainable agriculture, and so on. What are the various methods that qualify to be called climate friendly in this case? Obviously, you're seeing some terms here: vertical farming, silvopasture, and regenerative agriculture, permaculture, and so on. This is from Carbon Brief, which is a very nice uh, outlet which puts out some very useful articles, info brochures, and glossaries like this. So let's just read the terms. Agroecology, according to the FAO, agroecology is a holistic and integrated approach that simultaneously applies ecological and social concepts and principles to the design and management of sustainable agriculture and food systems. So we have to obviously define sustainable agriculture itself, which we'll do at the end. Agroecology is concurrently a science, a set of practices, and a social movement. The FAO adds, Food and Agricultural Organization. Agroecology uses ecological science and social principles such as the right to food, fair access to resources for all, and inclusion of marginalized groups to produce diversified crops without the use of synthetic fertilizers and pesticides. Agroecological practices aim to foster interactions between species, humans, and the environment to produce long-term soil fertility, healthy agroecosystems, and just livelihoods. IPES Food says, that's the International Panel of Experts in Sustainable Agriculture, says this holistic approach includes different knowledge systems, including those from indigenous traditions. So it's all encompassing concept, and we have to go and look to see which ones qualify as agroecological farms in the world, right? Agroforestry, we've talked a lot about it, where you mix uh, trees with agriculture. This is alley cropping, but nonetheless a method of land management where trees are grown alongside crops and or livestock on farms. This can give farmers another income stream, improve soil health, support biodiversity, absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. And planting trees on farm can also help to protect land and buildings from extreme weather, providing shade for crops and livestock, reducing rainfall runoff and shielding against the wind, reducing evaporative losses, increasing soil moisture content and persistence, and groundwater recharge, drought resilience, and so on and so forth. Alley cropping is up next. It's a farming method that combines crops and trees as well, slightly different than agroforestry, but similar principles. It involves planting economically important hardwood trees species in parallel rows. Then farmers grow crops such as cereals, legumes, vegetables, and vines in between the rows. According to the European Agroforestry Federation, trees farmed using this approach provide fruits and wood products for farmers as well as shelter for crops. They also act to store carbon and protect the soils. This system is labor intensive and thrives best in humid lowlands such as the coastal regions of Kenya. So non-rainy season income is especially important in places like Kenya or India, where rainfall tends to be very seasonal and rain-fed agriculture tends to last for a few months of the year, and the rest of the time farmers tend to migrate out to work as laborers elsewhere, which comes with a whole new set of socioeconomic problems. A 2024 review paper found that yield in alley cropping systems often vary substantially depending on the species planted, the design of the system, and other factors. It noted that yields of the plants closer to the trees were generally lower due to competition with the trees for nutrients, but farther from the trees, yields were often found to be higher than in conventional farming systems, the paper says. But you have to obviously look at the whole cost-benefit analysis in terms of total yield and the rest of the benefits that come from having trees. Biodynamic agriculture, a form of organic farming that focuses on soil health, biodiversity, and an overall holistic approach to food production. It is familiar to it is similar, to organic agriculture, but incorporates metaphysical ideas in treating soil and crop growth. A 2022 study says it is popular in Germany, France, and Australia, but makes up less than 1% of global certified organic farmland. A 2022 study found, these are links so you can click on them in the real report, found that biodynamic agriculture enhances soil quality and biodiversity, but noted that there is not a huge amount of data available, so it's mostly theoretical at this point. The practice is considered by some to be pseudoscience. It was developed based on works of philosopher Rudolf Steiner, who encouraged farmers to look to the cosmos before planting and harvesting crops. The Guardian reported these methods have changed over time, and farms can now become certified by private organizations as biodynamic in dozens of countries. Is it climate friendly? If it is holistic, then it will be, but you have to figure out the pseudoscience part. Carbon farming, a type of agriculture that aims to boost the amount of carbon sequestered through soils and plants on a farm. This can be achieved by applying organic compost or biochar to soils, minimizing soil disturbances, and varying the type of crops grown. One point often raised about carbon farming and other soil-reliant practices is that they are not permanent. Carbon can be released from the soils due to extreme weather or future changes in farming practices. Carbon farming falls under the umbrella of climate-smart agriculture. So the general residence time of carbon in the soils is much shorter than you would want for geologic storage anyway, but nonetheless, soil carbon enhanced can have cascading effects on nutrient retention, soil moisture holding capacity, groundwater recharge, and of course crop yields. Carbon neutral farming, on the other hand, is a method of farming practice where the emissions from a farm equal the amount of CO2 it takes up from the atmosphere. In theory, if a livestock farm contained forested land that was absorbing the same amount of CO2 from the atmosphere as its cows and sheep were emitting, it could be considered carbon neutral. These emissions could also be balanced out by carbon offset projects. There is mounting evidence that offsets such as forest protection and clean cook stoves schemes have overstated their ability to cut emissions. There is a tendency to do greenwashing. By offsetting, you also kind of wash your hands off your responsibility to reduce emissions, for example. And the certification of offsets can be very dishonest, let's say, not transparent at least. Climate friendly farming, a type of farming that aims to be less harmful to the environment than high yield intensive practices. This could be achieved through reducing greenhouse gas emissions, using less synthetic fertilizer, and planting trees. There is no set definition for climate friendly farming, and the term is often used to refer to a wide variety of practices, including climate smart agriculture. So climate smart agriculture has become very in vogue now, very fashionable. Lots of companies are selling information and maybe even instruments, monitoring, etc. for climate smart agriculture. This is a set of agricultural approaches that aims to sustainably increase farm productivity and incomes, help farmers adapt to climate change, and cut greenhouse gases where possible, according to the FAO. These objectives are intended to be applied in an appropriate way in each local context. It depends on crops, local climate, weather, policies, government, technology available, government subsidies, etc. Many governments and organizations fund this approach to farming. It's also been promoted by many agri-business companies, including Corteva and Base, as well as philanthropies such as Gates Foundation. However, the Trump administration canceled a $3 billion program for climate-smart farming projects in the U.S. because it did not align with its priorities, Reuters reported in April 2025. It's been an interesting year so far. Some civil society and farmer groups are concerned that the term can be used to greenwash industrial farming practices, where you say you are doing climate smart agriculture and reducing emissions, but you are basically doing whitewashing or greenwashing in this case as well. Several terms in this glossary, such as regenerative agriculture, fall into the category of climate smart agriculture as well. What is eco-friendly farming? It's a type of farming that aims to be less harmful to the environment than high-yield intensive practices, just like climate smart agriculture. This could be achieved through reducing greenhouse gas emissions, using less synthetic fertilizer, and planting trees. Same things we said before. As with climate-friendly farming, there is no set definition for eco-friendly agriculture, and again, any fuzzy terms can be used to greenwash, right? Ecological farming, we already kind of mentioned something along this line, but this is a big earth mover going around. A type of agricultural system that seeks to integrate certain characteristics of ecosystems into farming. For example, cultivating high biodiversity in the soil is true to grow. I think the sentence is as a typo. For example, cultivating high biodiversity in the soil is thought to grow healthier food and reduce pests. According to Greenpeace, there are 7 principles of this system, with some relying on agroecological principles such as food sovereignty and benefits for farmers and rural communities. Ecological farming aims to reduce harmful environmental impacts while improving food yields. A 2024 report study. The research claimed that it not only lowers production costs but also improves the quality and market value of agricultural products. All of these can have co-benefits in terms of reducing soil pollution, water pollution, groundwater recharge, so on. Land sharing, a land use strategy to include spaces for nature on farmland to boost biodiversity. In most cases, this decreases agricultural yields. It can reduce the negative impact of farming on land and involves a range of actions such as restoring hedge rows, and limiting the use of synthetic fertilizers. There is debate about whether land sharing or land sparing is more beneficial for nature conservation. Both approaches aim to minimize trade-offs between increasing agricultural production and conserving biodiversity. Agriculture is a land-use intensive practice, but we are always trying to think of ways to reduce our impact, even as we want to grow more food and sell it for profit, but also waste a lot of it, or manipulate the system by wasting grains to keep the prices high, and so on. Land sparing, then, a land use strategy to carry out high yield intensive agriculture in one part of the farm and leave land aside for nature in another. This could involve maintaining forests, wetland, green and grassland habitats, and would separate spaces for agriculture and nature. There is debate again about whether land sharing or land sparing is more beneficial for nature conservation. Both approaches aim to minimize trade-offs between increasing agricultural production and conserving biodiversity, as we said. More realistically, low tillage agriculture, again low as compared to what? This is always tricky. So this here is a tractor using disc harrows for plowing, and these things are generally not low tillage. So low tillage is a type of agriculture that aims to protect the soil without using traditional tillage methods, which consist of preparing soil for cultivation by turning or plowing. This system uses lighter equipment to perform shallower cultivations, thus disturbing the soil as little as possible. Compared to conventional tillage, this method increases the concentrations of soil organic carbon and nitrogen. It can also allow the soil to retain more water. Okay, there's always a virtuous cycle. If you increase carbon in the soil, then it leads to nutrient retention, soil water retention, and groundwater recharge, soil moisture persistence, drought resilience, as I mentioned before. No-till agriculture, on the other hand, is a type of agriculture that avoids the use of machinery by using a drill to plant crops directly into the soil. This helps mitigate greenhouse gas emissions, keep carbon in the soil, and reduce soil erosion. For corn, soybean, and wheat, this method is associated with lower operation costs and greater net returns per acre compared to conventional tillage. So there are a lot of co-benefits as well. Okay. Management, did I jump anything? No. Management intensive grazing, a type of practice where farmers set aside a portion of land for a large number of livestock to graze, especially during short periods, while other swathes of land are left to rest and recover. This results in an efficient use of land and the optimization of forage growth and soil health. It requires monitoring and control of activities such as forage supply or grazing time and space, yet it yields significantly higher biomass of certain pastures in rangelands and could promote the weight gain of grazing sheep compared to other grazing options, according to a 2025 study. Obviously, fatter sheep brings more meat and more income, but nonetheless, these rotational grazing type of ideas have been around. You have to again look for case studies where it's been successfully implemented and data actually show these benefits. Organic farming, a method that aims to grow food in a way that improves the health of the soil, animals as well, and plants in addition. It seeks to prevent pest outbreaks and conserve nutrients in the soil through the use of ecologically based fertilizers, biological pesticides, and crops that add or fix nitrogen into the soil. Nitrogen is always a good nutrient for plants. That's what we add with fertilizers. A 2017 study found that organic farming requires more land than conventional methods, but reduces nitrogen surplus and pesticide use. Nitrogen surplus and the perturbation to the global nitrogen cycle is fairly serious. Many people work on it. It doesn't get as much attention as CO2 and carbon cycling, but there are arguments that we have already crossed the safe planetary boundary in terms of the nitrogen cycle perturbations. Organic crop yields are more than 18% lower than conventionally farmed food, according to a 2023 study. The research notes the productivity of organic farming systems and their capacity to address the global food demand of a rapidly increasing population has been debated. A 2019 study found that in addition to overall lower yields, organic farming resulted in more variable yields, pointing out that stable crop yields are necessary to ensure reliable access to nutritious food. It added that organic agriculture is more profitable for farmers due to organic premium that consumers pay, but this also means that it's a luxury item that only some consumers can afford, so food security and organic food may be in that sense somewhat contradictory. There are various certification schemes for farmers that meet organic farming practices, such as the USDA certifications, the EU organic logo, and the IFOAM standard, but there have been controversies as well. For example, organic food market called Whole Foods in the US sells things with organic on label, but then they were caught with some things not qualifying as organic. Then they said they buy things from China where the certification is outsourced to a third party, in which case they don't have a control on making sure whether it really is organic or not. Permaculture is, of course, a holistic type of farming as well that seeks to reduce waste and protect wildlife and land. It's a portmanteau of the word permanent and agriculture. Portmanteau is a word that combines them, of course. It incorporates crop rotation, rainwater harvesting, renewable energy use, and low-impact livestock farming. A 2024 study found that in Central Europe, farms using permaculture had 27% more carbon sequestration and a 201% higher abundance of earthworms compared to farms practicing conventional agricultural techniques. Earthworms are of course very good for aerating the soils and giving them a healthy healthy character for increasing crop yields. The study called this an effective tool to promote sustainable agriculture. There has not been extensive research into the yield's impacts of permaculture. This is precision agriculture. Again, is it really very different than smart agriculture? Well, in some sense it is, because here is an agricultural drone spraying pesticides on a paddy field in Malaysia, so supposed to be very specific in applying fertilizers or insecticides and pesticides and so on. So precision agriculture then is a type of farming that uses data and technology to make more efficient and productive work by reducing inputs such as water, fertilizer and pesticides. This approach relies on GPS, aerial vehicles, soil sensors and other technologies to obtain and process data on the variations of crops like crop stress, animals and soil, so farmers can tailor inputs to desired outputs. CSIRO notes, the Australian agency. For example, mobile phones can be used to provide alerts on weather, pests and diseases. This approach leads to lower costs, less physical labor and a smaller environmental footprint, ultimately enhancing the profitability of farming according to the UNDP, but also means a lot of investments is involved, so maybe only rich farmers can afford this precision agriculture. Regenerative agriculture, a method of farming crops and or animals in a way that prioritizes soil quality and ecosystem biodiversity. It also aims to boost farm carbon storage. The term has multiple definitions, with some focusing solely on soil health and others on wider ecosystem benefits. Some studies show soil health benefits. The farming method aims to work in harmony with nature according to FAO, while WWF says it offers a holistic approach to restore and maintain ecosystem health. Many agri-business companies, including Bayer, Corteva and Danish Crown, hail the benefits of regenerative agriculture, but some organizations make big promises on the method's ability to address climate change that are more than it may be capable of delivering, notes the Smog. Every time you say something has a climate benefit or ecological advantages, nature friendly, climate friendly and so on, big companies will use it to claim things that are always over exaggerated a little. Rotational grazing, a livestock, so we talked about management intensive, but this is rotational, a livestock rearing approach that involves grazing animals on one patch of land for a period of time before moving to another patch. The first area is then left fallow to allow grass to regrow ahead of the next grazing period. A field is split into smaller paddocks for this type of grazing. This aims to improve grass quality, grass production and soil health, as well as extend the amount of time animals can graze outdoors. Some studies have identified improved soil health and other ecosystem benefits in certain types of farms using this grazing method, but a 2025 study found that short periods of grazing did not benefit the soil carbon sequestration. So again, a bit of claims, maybe overestimating the benefits. Silvopasture is grazing sheep in a silvopasture environment here, a method part of the agroforestry that refers to the integral management of trees, forest plants and grazing activities in a plot to obtain forest, forage and livestock products. In silvopasture systems, farmers use rotational grazing to raise animals including chickens, turkeys, horses, sheep, cattle and even bison and deer, which benefit from the pastures and trees to get food and shade. Such a rotation maximizes vegetative plant growth and harvest according to the USDA. The Irish Initiative Farming for Nature and the University of Wisconsin-Madison list benefits of the approach such as soil health, animal welfare and increased income. Trees also increase biodiversity and improve water quality benefits. Obviously, meat consumption will continue, and meat consumption is always less climate friendly than being a vegetarian, but of course you have to worry about how much you are driving and flying as well. So we have to consider everything together. Sustainable agriculture, finally, is a type of agriculture using practices that conserve biodiversity and soil in order to feed current and future generations. This system promotes the farming of diverse crops and crop rotation, which can reduce the reliance on chemical pesticides and fertilizers and improve soil conditions. It can also be profitable and provide decent revenues to farmers, according to the Institute for European Environmental Policy. The Rainforest Alliance sees sustainable agriculture as a journey towards regenerative agriculture and is one of the various international organizations, including SCS Global Services, that provide certificates for farmers that use sustainable practices. Being a part of the club or being certified always adds motivation to doing these things, but monitoring, reporting, verification then become very important as well. Okay, it's a nice little glossary that Carbon Brief provided, so I'm happy to have recorded it as a podcast because it gives you a quick run through all the climate friendly farming methods. Okay, see you in the next topic.